Welcome to Brave Healer Productions. It's time to experience what's possible. So, what if there's something you haven't learned yet that could change everything? Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we're helping the world experience what's possible. And here today to help me with that mission is the author of one of our newest books. This book, you guys, is called Holy Dirt, a Camino journey out of mind into body, saved by song. Welcome, Molly Lord. I'm so excited. How are you today?
Thank you, Laura. I am too.
You guys, we have so much to share about this book, but I really want to give you a little looky-loo at the beautiful cover. So here we are, Holy Dirt. And I want to tell you a little bit about Molly first. So, Molly Lord is an educator, passionate storyteller, screenwriter, and pioneer in the field of music and archetypes. With her keen sense of story, she's loved by national audiences for her dynamic, humorous, and unconventional teaching style and take on life. 40 years in varied fields of human behavior studies, teaching, directing nonprofits, and mediating for the criminal justice system. I ideally led to launching her Jungian-based seminar company, Tuned In Productions. Its cutting-edge workshops, keynotes, and virtual trainings highlight the scientific and spiritual link between behavior patterns that run our day-to-day lives and the music we love. And you guys are going to see when you crack open this beautiful book, you're going to want to get your phones ready because she's got the soundtrack of her Camino in this book. It makes it so unique. So many different things I want to talk about today, Molly, but let's start with your why. Like, why walk the Camino? Give us a little bit.
I'm still asking that question. No, why I set out on it sure ended up to be a different reason in the middle of it, and then even a different reason toward the end of it. And now, 5 years out, 6 years out, even another reason. So I'll start with why I stepped into it, literally and figuratively. I had heard about it from a friend. He had walked it, and I immediately said, "Oh, that's something I would have done a long time ago, but not now." And not because of my age. I mean, I was in my 60s, early 60s then, middle 60s. But I had injuries. I had 40 years worth of accumulated injuries that I had pretty much gotten through. But just in those years, a couple of years before my friend Patrick told me about the Camino, they were hanging over my head. And I thought, oh my God, walk 500 miles. I can't even go 5 miles without coming home and being on ice, for 5 hours. So no, I don't see myself walking the Camino. And it was about a year later when some old injuries really flared up, and this little voice in my head said, I think to get through and on the other side of this, you need a carrot. And that carrot is walking the Camino. And I fought it. I mean, I had a little battle with my brain. This idea seemed ridiculous and a little dangerous for my body. But it finally clicked one day where I thought, yeah, I have a history of a saying in my family that I'm an accident waiting to happen. And sometimes that makes me become a rebel to overcome it. And other times I shy away and go, oh, what if it's right? and the Camino is a death march. So going one, finally I decided I'm going to go. And I went with not the goal of reaching the end of the 500 miles. That's my old competitive self. That's the part that said, I can overcome these injuries and I'm going to win. And it's kind of like my body against me. That's how it used to be. And I thought, if I am going to walk this, my purpose is to befriend this body for the first time, to quit bossing it around, quit trying to prove I can do something, but rather forge a true partnership with it. Thought, if I'm ever going to do it, this is where to do it, because we've got to be a we, not a it and myself. It's both of us. Here we go. So I went. And the beginning purpose was, I want to move through this issue I have with my body suddenly not cooperating with me.
So, we're assuming everyone knows what this is. So, for people who don't, what is the Camino? What is
Oh,
this?
yeah, there's that, isn't there?
Yeah.
The Camino is an ancient, thousands of years old. In the beginning, it was a religious pilgrimage, but it evolved into people just looking. You can choose how long you want to walk. You can start anywhere in Spain. Oh, that I didn't mention Spain. It's in Spain. Um, the the long Camino, which is the 500 miles, if you choose to do that, starts in Saint Jean Pied de Port, France. You go over the Pyrenees and then across northern Spain. And it's an experience where you walk through the day as far as you want to go, though the guidebook tells you, like, we recommend doing this number of miles to get to this little village, by sunset, but you can do whatever you want. And you stay in hostels, albergues, a hotel. Sometimes you can find an Airbnb. It's every opportunity. Whereas thousands of years ago, they crawled in a barn to sleep. And sometimes pilgrims do that still, or crawl into a church pew. But you can choose, do you want the rough Camino? Do you want in between? So that's the spirit of it, is just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. Be where your feet are. And when you start, you're totally in your head. Did I pack everything I need? Did I need more? Oh, looks like it's too heavy. I should dump. Oh, I think I should dump more. Oh my God, this is so heavy. I thought I needed this, but I don't. So it's a constant battle the first week of, what can I get rid of? Oh dear, what do I need? Am I doing it right? I mean, the committee in one's head is hilarious looking back on it, and it's all part of it. Analyzing, you're not in your heart as much as you thought you would be because you heard all these magical things, but that's all part of it, is sorting through the craziness in our heads. I have a joke or a line in my book that came up several times, of wanting to turn to someone and say, excuse me, do the voices in my head bother you? So, and then as you evolve through it, it took me 5.5 weeks to complete the 500 miles. And as you go along, you start realizing, okay, my pack's getting lighter. I'm dumping things. I'm giving it away. I even ship things ahead to the goal of Santiago, which is the city where there is a huge cathedral. And the goal is to make it to the church square, this gorgeous, gorgeous cathedral. And I ship things ahead twice. And I decided to walk it alone. In the last minute, like a couple months before, my friend Renee happened to mention she could carve out a week from work to come with me for the first week. And I thought, yeah, let's do that. And I thought I would want to be alone the whole time. You're never really alone on the Camino, but I wasn't going to go with anyone. So she came along for the first week. It was pretty darn funny and frustrating. I mean, we had some rough days, and but it was great to cut my teeth with her on it.
So, one of my favorite parts of your book is the inner dialogue, and you do a really, really brilliant, vulnerable job of helping us in your mind. And you have such an incredible sense of humor that those parts for me were a gift. So I thank you for that, because it does help us understand what goes through your mind when you have not only chosen to do something so tremendous, but you're in the middle of it and you're like, oops, I can't quit now. And what happens, right, if I really want to? So when did you know you'd write a book about it? Tell me about that part.
When I got home, it wasn't then. I was still processing everything. During the pandemic, about a year into the pandemic, I run seminars on music and archetypes, and those shut down. And I am connected to a writing group. I write screenplays. I never intended to write a book. I didn't know how to write a book. And these friends in the writing group said, well, we want to hear about your Camino. So why don't you just process it by writing about it? So that's what I did. And before I knew it, I had about 5 chapters, and they were saying, oh my God, keep going, because this is fun. And because they had no idea what it was really like to do it. So that's how, and I wasn't going to publish it. It was just, this is so good for me to remember each day, remember the crazy people I met, the brilliant people I met, to remember how I felt, and the whining in the beginning that transformed into elation, and just to walk myself through it. So when I got to the end, well, it took me a long time, long past the pandemic, to finish it. I thought, why wouldn't I publish this? Why wouldn't I put this out there? This wasn't the purpose of the book is not to convince anyone to do the Camino. In fact, I may have just talked some people out of it who may have no, not true. But it's to look at the human condition and the habits we all have of how we deal with letdown, how we deal with our hopes and our dreams, and when it doesn't turn out that way, and how do we roll with it? Do we roll with it? Um, I I wasn't aware of my transformation during that time of walking until I wrote about it, and I thought this could help others, and it might help them in something totally different than taking on a physical challenge. But mine was mainly a physical challenge.
I love listening to you talk about how the writing process, or what the writing process did for you, because of course, I stand, all the books stand on this foundation of this is a self-development journey. Once you decide to write, and then you decide to write a book, and then you decide to, ooh, I think I'm going to actually publish that book. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for being brave about that part too, because it's definitely part of the journey.
Yeah.
Um, you had so many moments of magic on that trail. I loved reading about all of them. I want to know which one for you stands out the most. Which one was the most mind blowing magic for you?
Oh, I have to pick, huh?
I know it's hard. There were many.
Uh, well, I have to do this one. Um, 2 years before I walked the Camino, the person who helped me talk through, am I crazy to walk it with these injuries, or is it the best thing to face doing the Camino to work through these injuries? The person I did that with was my closest friend, Linda, a college friend. We had been best buds for 40 plus years. And she suddenly passed away. She died suddenly of an aneurysm right after a text that we had exchanged where she was asking me all these questions about the Camino. And and she wasn't going to go. It's the last thing she ever wanted to do. But she was my cheerleader to do the Camino, and she died. And so the spirit of doing the Camino died in me, like, well, this isn't fun anymore. I went through just a grieving time. Well, I worked through that, and eventually the spark of doing the Camino returned. And when I was walking, I would talk to Linda and say, are you with me? Are you here? You talked me into this. So I have, in fact, I had 5 dead people follow me on the Camino, people very close to me. And in their own way, each one showed up. But Linda was the one that I just needed to know she was there. And it was silent, and then it was silent, and then it was silent, and I would talk to her. And one morning I woke up, I said, look at Linda, you were going to be my cheerleader, and then you go and die. And I deserve at least for a book to fly off the shelf, or you show up in some way. So somehow today, as I'm walking, I would like you to send me a sign. And I want it to be so obvious of a sign that I have no doubt it's from you. And I'm like, there, take that. An order to the celestial beings. I didn't know if I could order them around, but I had to give it a try. And so I set out that day, and I didn't get any cue in the beginning, like, all right, I'm going to, present a Bernie Bush or something. So I'm about 3 hours into the walk that day, and I'm climbing this very muddy, rutted mountain side. And there were probably, I could see 20 people, pilgrims. We're called pilgrims. I could see maybe 20 pilgrims ahead of me, stretched out a couple miles, and a handful behind me. And I started catching up to these 2 people ahead of me. And I heard them speaking English. On the Camino, you meet people from all over the world. And when you can't, it's amazing when you can't speak their language. It's amazing what a smile does. There's a greeting called Buen Camino that everyone uses, and it just means, I hope you're having a good way. I hope your Camino is going well. And sometimes that's all you can say to someone because you don't speak their language. But I heard it was an older woman, not that older woman. If she listens to this, sorry, Gloria. And a younger, like in his 20s, young man. And they were speaking English. So we're huffing and puffing, and I catch up to them climbing this hill. And we start talking. And I find out they're from Long Island, New York. And she was just retired as a superintendent, and he's in school, and we're getting caught up on our lives and where we're from. And she said, so Molly, have you ever been to Long Island? And I'm smiling, saying, I sure did once. Well, I explained to her that I went with my friend Linda and her husband John because their aunt and uncle had a huge 50th wedding anniversary bash outside on Long Island Sound. He's a very wealthy New Yorker in the communication field. And her uncle Jim, um, has this party every year. Only because it was their 50th, this was huge. And I got to go, usually just for friends and family. But he said Linda could bring me. So I'm telling Gloria and Evan, her nephew, all of this. And I said, when we got there, I was blown away. It was like a whole long yard filled with tablecloth or white tablecloth tables with food pouring over it and margarita fountains, and every time you turned around it was a movie star or a comedian or a politician that was invited, and the whole time I'm like, pinch me. And that night the Rockettes performed. I mean, this was not your basic party, right? And then Whitney Houston. So I'm telling Gloria and Evan about this time I went to Long Island, and, it was the ultimate, and how special it was. And I told him Linda had passed away, and I was hoping to have her be on my Camino, but she hadn't shown up yet. Gloria turns to me, and this is the miracle of the Camino. She turns to me and said, and after Whitney Houston, you sat and watched the fireworks over Long Island Sound, didn't you? And I looked at her, said, what? How did you know that? She said, Molly, I was there. She said, I wasn't at the party, but I know Linda's uncle. I know him well. And all of us in Long Island do, because he's such an amazing man. And he provides those fireworks every year. And we go out with our boat and we anchor our boat with hundreds of other boaters, and we enjoy it every year. It's a party. And we know they have a party every year. So we hang out and we listen to who's performing. So my jaw drops. There were thousands of pilgrims ahead of me, thousands behind. And who do I connect with? On the day that I asked Linda, give me a sign and make it so clear that I have no doubt it comes from you. I meet someone who knows her favorite uncle and was there 20 flippin' years ago, the same day I was there, in a little different way. I mean, even she said, Molly, the hairs on my arms are up. So that's the magic of the Camino. That was probably a day when I connected so much with the other side, with the faith in that the veil is so thin between us and the other side, and that miracles happen. And we're always accompanied by people we love. And I could just hear Linda going, pretty good, huh? How'd you like that one? So I would say that was an outstanding day.
I love that example. There are many in the book, you guys. So for our listeners who are thinking about picking up Holy Dirt, you need to do it, and you're going to have so many beautiful moments that Molly shares that were just pure magic, pure miracle. What would you tell somebody thinking about doing the Camino?
That if they're thinking of it, they already received the call, and you're just going to do it. Once that call for transformation comes, there's no turning back. So just surrender and make your plans, book it. Once I booked my flight, I'm like, oh no, there's no turning back now. Because I wanted to turn back a few times. Just do it. And there's magic waiting. And I don't mean the kind of magic. I mean, it's a spiritual experience if you want it to be. It's a physical experience. You have no choice about that. It's what you make it and what you think you're going for. Sure, people get answers, but there's something else that you're not speaking out loud of the reason you want to go that's what the Camino goes for and says, you were saying you came for this, but I'm going to make sure you leave with that. And that's what caught me by surprise. Yeah.
So the book is it's ready for you guys. You can hop over to Amazon and grab your copy of Holy Dirt. And inside you're going to find out a little bit more about Molly Lord. Molly, you have a lot going on aside from this new book. Tell us, share with us a little bit about your work, your music, all the things you're up to.
Yeah. I'm not a musician. I don't sing. I don't play a note. And that's what's amazing is for now almost 18 years, I have been running seminars on, it's called Tuned In, the Soundtrack of Your Life. That's my core workshop. I have others that spin off from it. And it explores, if people are familiar with archetypes, they'll understand that there are behavior patterns that make up our personality. If you don't know what an archetype is, it doesn't matter. Just we all know there are behavior patterns that make up how we get through life. You know, are we victimy? Are we a warrior? Are we a caregiver type person? Are we a leader? Are we more intellectual or more of a feeler? But it's how we get through life. And what my workshops look at is, okay, so we won't try to change that, but is there one that's dominant that's in your way? And if so, are you aware that the way you choose the music you listen to is feeding that? And can you manage the music you listen to in order to get the result you want in your life? How can you have it affect your body chemistry? How can it can affect your relationship decisions? We're not even aware of how music is shaping us. So it's a 2-day deep dive into what's happening when music crawls inside your head. And it's a fascinating, people come because they love music and they leave understanding why music touches them the way it does, but they leave understanding the games they play, good games and detrimental games, but mostly, well, in addition, what other people, the dance they do in life, and the ones that frustrate you, the ones you love, you start seeing, oh, I get them now. That guy in the next cubicle isn't so crazy after all. So people start understanding human nature and why we do what we do. So it's all these things that come together because music is a common language and you start understanding what makes you tick. So that's like in a nutshell what I do, a big nutshell.
Well, you guys are going to be able to find out more about that because we've got all the links and all the things, all the places down below that you can explore. Molly, what are some last words you want to leave people with today? You know, we're all kind of taking our steps on this healing journey of life. What do you want to
Yeah,
leave everyone with?
yeah. Two two things come to mind. Whenever we enter a period in life for a choice or an adventure, or it's something we didn't choose, but it's still a journey, a hero's journey, we gather information to get through it. And one of the things that I learned on the Camino is I arrived with tons of information, what to pack, what's it going to be like, you know, all this stuff crammed in my head. And what that transformed into is sacred knowledge. So it was no longer information. Once you experience it, walk through it, just like everyone does with their own journey, it turns into this sacred knowledge that I don't think we give ourselves credit sometimes for what we've gained going through tough times and exhilarating times. And I think what I'd like to leave people with is that to honor yourself for the sacred knowledge you've gathered in your life. it turned from information to something that is worth sharing. And the other big thing, even though it's cliche-ish, when people say be in the moment, like how many times do we hear that? And we go, yeah, 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 right. But Scott M. O'Neill wrote a book called Be Where Your Feet Are. And if I had not subscribed to that idea of being where my feet were, I probably would have gone off a cliff on the Camino, metaphorically and literally. I had a friend on the Camino that I met. His name was Gentleman Jade from Romania. And he got the name Gentleman Jade because he is a psychotherapist, and he does a radio show. And people call in with their problems, and kind of a Frasier, I'm guessing. And that's where people named him Gentleman Jade. He's a very gentle soul. But he said something to me. We talked about 6 months after the Camino. He checked in, how you doing? And he said something to me when I said, I think the biggest thing I got out of it was to be where my feet are, be in the moment, know where you are in time and space, because this is where we are. I can be in all these lofty ideas, but it gets me in trouble. And it has many times to not be where I am. And he said, yeah, yeah. And I want to read. I have his little note right here because it's so delicious. I don't want to miss any word. So I'm going to read it. He said, I know it's like when we're not in the moment, when we're not where our feet are, it's like we won the lottery a long, long time ago. And instead of checking our numbers, we kept buying more tickets. And I thought, wow, no wonder they call you Gentleman Jade. So I guess that's it. Be in the moment and know that you hold sacred knowledge. And
Yeah,
it needs to be
powerful.
shared. Amen.
Definitely amen to that. Molly, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for this beautiful book and being here today to share it with everyone.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you for helping me get it out there.
Oh, my
I couldn't have
pleasure.
done it without you.
So, you guys, again, hop over to Amazon. Holy Dirt is ready for you. I've got the link down below. Please explore Molly's website and all that she is up to. Aside from grabbing your copy of the book, there's a lot of wonderful things going on in her world, and her link is also down below for you. You can check her out at mollylord.com. And of course, we want you to know that in our world, in Brave Healer land, these are way more than books. This is a generous community. Maybe something Molly said today gave you the goosebumps, or you actually have a question, you want to carry on the conversation, or maybe you even need some support. Well, like, we're here for that. So, again, drop down into the show notes, come onto her website, connect with us at bravehealer.com. And this is a community that cares about your next steps. Lastly, everyone, remember your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.